aren't there? There are no easy answers, are there, in situations like this?
This situation's repeated over and over again with people who feel they're left caring. I mean, today a lot of people do go into care homes, and in the UK there's quite an extensive domiciliary care agencies. You're right, we have quite a well-developed support team for people, and if you ask most older people, they want to stay in their own home or be cared for by their relatives. And I understand those who choose not to because of various other pressures in life, because we have with families, I wouldn't want anybody to feel guilty about the fact that they shouldn't be looking after older people because of their own personal circumstances as well.
And I think, isn't it also the reason we do it? In other words, if we see that putting that person, I don't like even using the phrase putting that person into a home, but allowing them to go into a home, they can actually receive far better care than we could give them. But we're not just shutting them away. We will go there to visit. We will, and we will make sure that contact is continued. Then probably it is for the best of the person, not for the detriment, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we do need, whether it's in the social services or in the church, a body type ministry. And I think we have to recognise that, you know, we're not asked to be on our own. You've got to remember, years ago, all families lived in the same area, so it wouldn't be just you looking after mum. It'd be it'd be the other sisters and brothers looking after them, and there'd be a much wider community all doing their bit. Today, when you look at families today, you find them in all parts of the globe, let alone all parts of England, and it is, and people like this lady's, you know, moved to Spain and lived there, and for all sorts of reasons, you find yourself in these dispersed situations, and you do need to pray and recognise that you've got to have, there has to be lots of different aspects of support. Unfortunately, often it doesn't come to you. You have to go and look for it. And I'm very keen, I'd emphasise the whole issue of trying to find care in people's own home. One of the reasons I changed from running, was running a lot of nursing homes, Christian nursing homes, very successfully, was actually to try and develop a new model of care where we could offer 24/7 care in people's own homes, because that's actually when most people want to be looked after. So
you have people that go into the home. How does that work?
Well, I mean, domiciliary care, that means home-based care, is available all over the place. You know, for half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night. But one of my dreams was to be able to offer people a lot more support, much more regular visits, and people who would normally have to be admitted into a care home, they could stay in their own home but have the same sort of support of carers, immediate online service, you know, carers available if they needed help. You can just phone and someone would then come round and do things. But rather than having it in an institution, which is what a nursing home is, unfortunately, they can remain in their own home, or they can remain in a family home with that sort of support. And we've successfully done this in two areas. This was an attempt to, which is becoming much more the modern pattern of looking after older people, is I've created two small, what one would call care villages, not really care villages in that sense, but they're blocks of flats with elderly care like any other elderly care home, but we offer 24/7 support in there, but also we care for people in the community the same way. And so you can have the same care within within the locality in your own home.
And what is interesting to me, I mean, next week we're talking about evangelism. We talked about evangelism before, and one of the things that we talked about in evangelism is you don't just use other things as an excuse to evangelize. In other words, you care for the people. And that's what I hear from what you're saying. In other words, you're not just finding, we'll help you so we can go in and preach the gospel. You are really helping the people, but seeking to bring the life of Christ into their life as well at the same time, but not just as an excuse, is it?
No, it's not an excuse, and very often the carers we use aren't Christians. It's not. It's very difficult to find a number of Christians who are going to work in a large organisation in the care. But what we do is, certainly in my organisation, we seek to do a whole person analysis of people to see what their needs are. Do they have spiritual needs? Do they have emotional needs? Do they have practical needs as well as the care needs that they have? So we would do that. And if this comes up, spiritual needs aren't just religious things. They're to do with feeling frightened or feeling fearful or guilty or having a lot of pain inside, then we would organise somebody, a pastor or a counsellor, to go around and spend some time with them, to hear their story, to spend time to try and help them in that way, as well as in the as well as in the care ways. And as I said to you again, preaching will get you nowhere.
Right.
You have to go and see where God has been involved in their life.
I find that very interesting. It's finding what is already in their lives, and tapping into that. You're not trying to bring something new in. You're trying to develop that which, and of course many, in fact most of these people would have been at Sunday school, would have had some sort of Christian upbringing, which may not be as true when this generation, if the Lord tarries and this generation becomes older, but there are things there that you can tap into and reach into their lives.
Yes, well that's true, and certainly of this current generation you're absolutely true, but even, as I say, I gave the example of someone who'd never been to church, had some experience with another Christian, which God had sort of burnt into his life in some way. He'd carried that through all his life, and then this was the man who come off the ship and had the pork pie and tea, if you remember.
Oh, that's fascinating. Pork pie and a cup of tea.
But that remained with him all his life, and then later on, that was the vehicle God used to lead him to a Christian care home, where he then had Christian care. So I see God at work in people's lives in every area, not just by evangelism or by or someone preaching the gospel or watching the TV.
And that Salvation Army lady all those years ago, I mean, isn't it amazing? Just I don't know, what did she feel? Was she fed up that day? Didn't want to go and do it? That cup of tea, the pork pie, and God uses it all those years later.
I've learnt in life, it's not what I do or say that matters; it's what God does and says that matters. So it's what the Holy Spirit does through what you say. It's the seed that is sown. So when you're talking to people who may have had, even people who've had no faith at all, part of it isn't just about preaching and telling them the message. Yes, that is always part of it. It's starting at what is God doing in their lives? Where has some seed been sown? Where is some issue? Where is there a need? Very often with patients, someone would come to me who is always frightened and full of fear. And so what can you, that I see this as a spiritual, it's an insecurity. It means I'm not safe. I'm not in my relationships with whatever I believe in God is, or with others, or with myself. And so very often this is an opening to say to people, well, fear is because you're frightened of the future or frightened of something. And it's an opportunity to share that actually this is something you could find through faith.
Right.
If that's what you want.
It's interesting because we have another email here because of the nature of it. I won't give the person's name, but they say, I'm very concerned about the standard of care that has been given to residents in a particular nursing home. I know the inspectors visit, but the visits do not give a true picture of what is actually happening, as the homes know when the inspector will be visiting, etc. My niece has worked in this particular home for about 7 months, but has had to leave because of the tremendous pressure of being continuously harassed to work extra hours. She found it very distressing to see the elderly people cannot defend their rights, and I feel that we would be failing them by not reporting what is happening.
Absolutely.
Now, what it seems to me from what Bill said there and this email, there are still nursing homes that fall below the standard. And the question that is asked in this email, who should I contact? What should I do about it? Because I feel this particular home is failing in its duty, what should I do about that? Well,
it's very simple. You report them to the inspector at Seasky, which is the inspector's office.
What's Seasky?
It's a standards agency that actually regulates and does the inspections.
Fine.
Any complaint they have to follow up and take seriously. They have to respond to you. There's a full complaints procedure, and if you've got specific complaints, you must follow it through. You will have interviews with them and the rest of it. And so you should. that the local C-Sky address will be given to you by the home, because they
Right.
should have given you that in your contract.
So C-Sky is an acronym, S-E-A-S-K.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's a care service.
Okay,
industry
yeah,
or something.
don't
I can't
worry, yeah.
remember exactly.
But that also should be in the phone book.
Yes,
I would
absolutely.
imagine.
But
Yes.
every home should give you that.
Right.
I 100% support people in this. I don't like care homes myself,
Yes.
if I was honest. That's one of the reasons I try to do a different model,
Yes.
keep people in their own home or support people
Yes.
who are caring for their relatives.